There was once an herb so powerful it was trusted to heal almost everything, from fevers to wounds, from weakness to disease. This single plant carried the reputation of a miracle. It was the herb of warriors, mothers, kings, and healers. A leaf that gave strength to armies, restored vitality to the weak, and carried secrets that modern science is only beginning to rediscover. For centuries, it was survival itself, a green lifeline woven into the story of empires. But then, it was silenced, erased from records, dismissed as superstition, and buried beneath the rise of industry. A plant that healed generations was suddenly forgotten. Why? Who wanted it gone? And what truths were hidden in its disappearance? Welcome to Forgotten Leaf Secrets, where suppressed remedies, hidden plant wisdom, and nature's mysteries come alive. The journey of this ancient herb begins thousands of years ago, in the heart of early civilizations. Growing wild in forests, fields, and riverbanks, it was discovered not by scholars, but by healers and villagers who relied on nature for survival. They brewed its leaves into teas to calm fevers. They crushed its stems into poultices to heal wounds. They fed its shoots to the weak and weary, watching strength return as if life itself flowed through its veins. To them, this herb was not just a plant. It was protection, a living guardian against sickness, hunger, and despair. As empires rose, the herb traveled with them. Soldiers carried it into battle. Traders spread it across borders. Healers recorded its powers in manuscripts that spoke of its ability to cure almost everything. This was the beginning of its legend, an herb trusted by kings, warriors, and common people alike. A miracle of survival woven into the very roots of civilization. As word of the herb's power spread, it began to rise beyond villages and healers, into the very heart of empires. Soldiers carried it into battle, believing its strength would keep them alive through exhaustion and wounds. Kings ordered it cultivated in palace gardens, guarded as a treasure of survival. Merchants traded it across borders, its reputation growing with every journey. It was not just medicine, it was strategy. Armies marched longer, fought harder, and recovered faster because of it. Families relied on it as their shield against famine and disease. Healers recorded its miracles in manuscripts, describing how one plant could treat fever, fiction, weakness, and even wounds that seemed beyond repair. Soon, the herb became a symbol of resilience. It was praised in songs, honored in rituals, and trusted by rulers who saw it as a secret weapon of endurance. Across continents, it was known as the Green Miracle, a lifeline that sustained civilizations. This was the height of its power. A humble plant, rising to legendary status, woven into the survival of empires. What made this herb so extraordinary was not just its legend, but its science. Modern analysis reveals what ancient healers already knew. This plant was a nutritional powerhouse. Its leaves carried iron levels that rivaled spinach, proteins that strengthened the body like meat, and antioxidants that fought disease at the root. It was medicine disguised as food. A single handful could restore energy to the weary, rebuild strength in the malnourished, and protect the body against infections. Healers brewed it into teas to calm fevers, crushed it into poultices to close wounds, and prescribed it for ailments ranging from stomach pain to respiratory illness. But its power went deeper. Compounds within the herb acted as natural antibiotics, fighting bacteria without the side effects of modern drugs. Its minerals fortified bones, its vitamins boosted immunity, and its green veins carried the lifeblood of resilience. To ancient civilizations, this was not just a plant, it was a miracle of survival. A living pharmacy growing freely from the soil, offering protection against hunger, disease, and despair. This was the secret that made the herb indispensable, and the very reason it became a threat to those who sought control. This herb was never just medicine, it was culture. In villages, families planted it beside their homes as a promise of survival. Each spring, its shoots were celebrated as the return of abundance, a ritual of resilience passed down through generations. Mothers fed it to children for strength, while elders brewed it into tonics, believed to protect not only the body but the spirit. Folklore praised it as a divine gift. Songs and stories spoke of its power to heal the sick and sustain the weary. Warriors carried it as a charm of endurance, believing its green veins held the lifeblood of nature itself. In ceremonies, it appeared as a sacred offering, a reminder that health and survival were not bought but grown freely from the soil. To kings, it was a hidden weapon. To healers, it was a miracle. To common people, it was identity, a living inheritance that tied them to the land. This was the cultural heartbeat of the herb. It was not just a plant. It was tradition, resilience, and memory, a symbol of how deeply nature was woven into the story of human survival. For centuries, this herb thrived, feeding families, healing the sick, and standing as a symbol of resilience. But then, history shifted. As empires gave way to industry, the world's relationship with food began to change. Profit replaced tradition. Seeds once shared freely were now cataloged, patented, and sold. The herb, which grew abundantly and asked for nothing, did not fit into this new order. It was labeled old-fashioned, dismissed as peasant food, and quietly removed from seed lists. Farmers were persuaded to abandon it for crops that could be monetized, marketed, and controlled. What had once been a miracle of survival was now seen as a threat to profit. This was the turning point. The herb that healed empires was not defeated by famine or disease. It was defeated by economics, silenced not by nature, but by human hands. And so, slowly, it vanished, erased from records, forgotten in fields, and buried beneath the rise of modern agriculture. But its story was not over. In hidden corners, in whispers of folklore, the herb still lived, waiting for the day it would rise again. The fall of this ancient herb was not an accident. It was deliberate. As industrial agriculture rose, powerful interests began reshaping the food system. Crops that could be patented, marketed, and sold for profit were promoted. But this herb, a plant that grew freely, asked for nothing, and gave endlessly, was a threat to that new order. Seed catalogs quietly removed it. Farmers were told it was outdated, unprofitable, and unworthy of modern fields. Texts that once praised its healing powers were rewritten, its name replaced by newer crops that could be controlled. Generations who had relied on it were persuaded to abandon it, their traditions labeled as primitive. Slowly, the herb disappeared from kitchens, from gardens, from the collective memory of entire nations. What had once been a miracle of survival was now dismissed as a weed. This was not just erasure from soil, it was erasure from history. A plant that healed empires was buried under the weight of profit, propaganda, and silence. And yet, in hidden corners, whispers of its power remained. Folklore kept its memory alive, waiting for the day it would be rediscovered. Though the herb was erased from fields and forgotten in books, it never truly vanished. In hidden gardens, far from the eyes of industry, families continued to grow it. Elders whispered its recipes to their children, passing down the knowledge in secret. In villages, it appeared in folklore, stories of a green miracle that healed the sick and gave strength to the weak. Herbalists preserved its memory, keeping seeds tucked away in jars, waiting for the day the world would remember. In remote corners, healers still brewed its teas, still crushed its leaves into poultices, still trusted it as protection against illness. It survived in shadows, not as a commodity, but as a tradition. A quiet rebellion against the erasure of nature's wisdom, and while the world forgot, the herb endured. In whispers, in rituals, in the soil itself. It carried its legacy forward, waiting, watching, holding on to the promise that one day its power would rise again. Centuries passed, and the world forgot. But nature never truly erases its wisdom. In recent decades, scientists began to look back, searching for answers in the plants that once sustained civilizations. And when they turned their attention to this ancient herb, what they found was astonishing. Laboratory studies revealed compounds with powerful antibacterial and antiviral properties. Natural defenses that could fight infections without the side effects of synthetic drugs. Nutritionists discovered its leaves carried iron, protein, and antioxidants in levels that rivaled modern superfoods. Doctors began to see its potential in strengthening immunity, reducing inflammation, and even supporting recovery from chronic illness. But the rediscovery was not limited to science. In villages where traditions survived, elders shared stories of how the herb had healed generations. Seeds preserved in jars were replanted, sprouting once again in hidden gardens. Herbalists revived ancient recipes, blending the herb into teas, tonics, and remedies that echoed the wisdom of the past. And in a world facing hunger, malnutrition, and rising disease, the herb's return felt less like history and more like prophecy. Could this forgotten plant, silenced for centuries, hold solutions for the crises of today? Its comeback is not just about nutrition. It is about memory, about reclaiming what was lost, and recognizing that nature's pharmacy has always been here, waiting for us to listen. The herb that once healed empires is rising again. Not as folklore, not as myth, but as science, tradition, and hope combined. Its silence is ending, and its voice is returning to the world. The story of this ancient herb is more than history. It is a reminder. A reminder that nature has always carried answers. That wisdom often lies in what we choose to forget, and that survival can grow freely from the soil beneath our feet. This herb healed empires, nourished generations, and endured in silence through centuries of erasure. And now, as the world faces hunger, disease, and disconnection from nature, its return is more than rediscovery, it is a second chance. The question is not whether this herb can rise again, but whether we are ready to embrace it, ready to listen to the whispers of tradition, and ready to trust the wisdom of nature once more. Because sometimes what was silenced holds the very cure we still seek today. If you want to uncover more hidden plant stories and suppressed remedies, make sure to like this video. Subscribe to Forgotten Leaf Secrets and stay with us on this journey.